This is the weekly business news in English on TV3. I am Nugzaru Khadze. How do you do? Georgia is jubilant. The agreement on Georgia's association with the European Union was signed yesterday on the 27th of June in Brussels, Belgium. The event was even marked with a special concert downtown Tbilisi. The agreement was signed by Georgia's Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili, President of the European Commission Jose Manuel Barroso, and the President of the European Council Herman Van Rompuy. The Georgian Premier applied from the high podium to our Abkhaz and Ossetian compatriots to take this unique opportunity of making use of every kind of good emanating from Georgia's rapprochement with Europe.
Drawing closer to Europe provides all of Georgians with new opportunities. Every citizen of Georgia, including, of course, our compatriots living in Abkhazia and Ossetia. This is why I address my brothers and sisters, Abkhazians and Ossetians. My dears, we're all the children of one country, one land. From now on, you, together with us, are sharers in this process. You have a unique opportunity to enjoy all the benefits provided by association with Europe.
As Garibashvili noted, Georgia is returning to its natural European habitat. This free will choice of Georgia is definitely historic. At last, Georgia is allowed, on certain terms of course, to handle its further development in alliance with the European Union in the capacity of an associate member.
Finally, Georgia has officially associated itself with the European Union. The Prime Minister's signature is already under the document. This might be a historic political event for our country, which is on the way of its development based on European ideals. Good luck, Georgia.
However, Turkey has been an associate member of the European Union since 1963, little over than 40 years, and is still associated, so to speak. Well, signing the agreement is good for Georgia anyway, even perfect, I would say, because Georgia's chances of getting Europeanized are definitely growing by days. But this significant socio-economic and political step forward made by this nation has a lot of strings attached to it, and potential consequences too, both good and bad, for that matter. Take Russia, for example. It is clear as a noonday that Russia feels bad about it. Now, the only happy guess for Georgia could be that Russia might take it all in her stride and remain nonchalant towards the bothering news. But in the worst-case scenario, the big and angry bear might get up the wall. And there is nobody in this country today who could possibly make even the approximate guess, educated guess, to this blurry end. Well, sense of euphoria is overwhelming in Georgia right now, but doubts, qualms, uncertainties, suspicions, and misgivings are also present, to a certain extent, of course. Russia threatens Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova with so-called self-defense measures. As soon as the agreement on association comes into force, and by virtue of analysis, we get convinced that it affects negatively the free trade zone of newly independent states and the terms and conditions of the World Trade Organization, Russia will take self-defense measures, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia Lavrov declared. At the same time, according to Lavrov, Russia is open to consultations and calls on the parties involved in the process and for consequent possible negotiations. This is all very good, but how about Russia's genuine thoughts and intentions? NATO confirms that the progress achieved by Georgia will be reflected on the decision regarding Georgia at the Wales summit. With these words, Alexei Petriashvili, the State Minister for the issues of Euro integration, responded to the information circulated by the Reuters news agency, which reads that granting of the MAP, the Membership Action Plan, to Georgia is not included in the agenda of the Wales NATO summit. In its stead, the country will get a new basic package of intensified cooperation with the alliance. Anders Fogh Rasmussen, Secretary General of NATO, made this statement at the NATO headquarters in Brussels at the ministerial session of foreign affairs of the alliance. Rasmussen stressed that the open door policy of the alliance remains unchanged and no country can stop it. In the words of Petriashvili, Georgia enjoys overall support at all levels, and it will get utmost possible benefits from the Wales summit at this stage. Thanks for that too. Better something than nothing. Most likely, in the Tkhinvali region, they will hold a referendum on the region's incorporation into the Russian Federation. The party called Unified Ossetia, which won the majority seats in the so-called local parliament, is working on fulfilling its main promise. This information to this end was circulated by the Russian information agency ITAR-TASS. According to the ITAR-TASS article, the Speaker of the so-called South Ossetian Parliament intends to begin consultations with other political parties of the non-recognized republic regarding the coveted referendum. While the occupied Tkhinvali is bidding on the referendum, Georgian government has not thought over the concrete retaliatory steps in case its runaway region undertakes this legal procedure. Most often, members of the Georgian cabinet of ministers and the American ambassador to Georgia use the word illegitimate while they touch upon the topic of South Ossetian referendum. Meanwhile, instead of working out a concrete action plan, Georgian Minister of Internal Affairs expresses hope that population of the occupied region doesn't envision its future together with Russia.
Somehow, I don't believe that it will happen. Ossetian people will choose to unite with Georgian people and integrate with Georgia.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Maya Panjikidze says that the referendum contradicts international jurisdiction and therefore it will be considered as utterly illegitimate. Meanwhile, the American ambassador Richard Norland advises the population who live on both sides of the division line to take care of poverty problems.
Completely support the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Georgia. We do not recognize the occupied territories as separate independent entities, and we're not really sure what significance this referendum would have at all.
Despite the fact that the international community didn't recognize the legitimacy of the so-called June 8 parliamentary elections in Tkhinvali, either the seats in the 24-mandate so-called parliament are already taken. And as a result, the issue of South Ossetia's integration into Russian Federation became topical. Unlike the parliamentary majority, the issue of Ossetian referendum didn't turn out to be unexpected for the minority of Georgian parliament. The national movement faction sees Putin's shadow behind Bibilov's initiative. The Georgian political experts share this perception as well.
It looks more like a specific game aimed at warning Georgia authorities. The more integrated Georgia becomes into the Western structures, the greater will be the likelihood of manipulating the results of the referendum on the part of Russia.
The international community didn't recognize the referendums conducted in the regions of Ukraine either. However, Russia Russian recognition is quite sufficient for the self-declared rulers. Will the Crimean scenario be replayed in Cchinvali, and will South Ossetia voluntarily discard its independence, recognized by Russia, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Nauru? We will know the answers to these questions when the Speaker of the newly elected so-called Ossetian Parliament officially moots his initiative at the de facto parliament. The occupied Abkhazia began preparations for the so-called presidential elections. In the database, they are checking the documents of those Georgians who received the so-called Abkhazian passports in recent years. Sukhumi is not hiding the fact that they have disbarred ethnic Georgians who live in Abkhazia to take part in the elections. Moreover, they may be expelled from the occupied territory as well. The declaration circulated by the Abkhazian side reads, all ethnic Georgians will be crossed out from the general list of voters, and they will be disbarred from participation in the elections of August 24. In the opinion of political experts, the new passportization is conducted at the behest of Raul Khajimba, and it's aimed at total expulsion of Georgians from Abkhazian territory. Irakli Sesiashvili, chairman of Parliamentary Committee for Defense, assessed the events taking place in Abkhazia as one more provocation on the part of Russia. He said that the Georgian authorities would appeal to international community for help, and they would do their best to confront yet another ethnic cleansing. Today, 46,000 Georgians live in occupied Abkhazia. Out of them, 26,000 people carry the so-called Abkhazian passports. Ministry of Displaced Persons and Refugees summed up its 4-month-long collaboration with the European Union on the matter of reintegration of migrants who are returning to their homeland. Especially for providing assistance to the Georgians returning to their native land, they set up 4 mobile centers in Tbilisi, Kutaisi, Batumi, and Tel Aviv. The ministry helped 2,000 re-immigrated Georgians in providing them with temporary shelter, finding jobs for them, and procuring means for financing their micro-businesses.
This problem is of particular importance because you cannot expect a country to enjoy the benefits of such a situation of liberalization. I mean, if the visa regime, if there is no responsible way of addressing this kind of problems, we look forward to Georgia's managing it.
Thanks to the mobile centers, 47 re-immigrated persons received business consultations. Out of them, 18 beneficiaries were granted finances for implementing their business projects. Minister of Finance Nodar Khadouri denies the allegations about the budget fallback. In his words, the country's 6-month budget was over-fulfilled. The minister touched upon the issue of the grants and pointed out that all grants would be transferred on time.
The plan of tax revenues is being fulfilled without any hindrance. In order to fulfill the 6-month plan, we just need to get 40 million lari in remaining days. That way we will go over the quota of the June budget as well as the 6-month income plan. As for the grants, the budget envisages 130 million to that end during this year. There is a little more allocated for the credits. Most of them have special purpose, which means that they will be transferred only after the concrete activity begins. Consequently, there is no serious problem regarding the budget.
The news that fulfillment of the 6-month budget would fall back by 100 to 110 million lari was publicized by the newspaper Business Resonance. The Georgian Prime Minister met with potential investors in the field of agriculture. The Israeli state delegation and Jewish companies involved in agricultural business participated in the business forum that took place in Georgia. The ministers of agriculture of Georgia and Israeli share the opinion that cooperation of private sectors should be supported by the intergovernmental relations.
Interest of Israel in Georgia is growing. Lately, many Jewish companies visited us. We hope that soon they will make serious investments in our sphere.
Basically, I'm traveling a lot, and all the time I'm taking with me businessmen and from the agriculture area that are looking for opportunities. Talking to government, we are creating an umbrella that enable private companies to do business. So my expectation is that they will find partners and they will do business. I cannot do more than that. If there is a problem, tax, technology, whatever, they can apply to us and we will try to solve it with our counterpart, the ministry in Georgia.
Members of governmental economic team acquainted the potential investors with Georgia's investment environment and existing projects. The Georgian-Israeli Business Forum was also attended by the Jewish companies that have already accomplished investments on Georgian market.
We are making investments, and at the same time, we are co-participants of an American fund. Along with us, they are ready to invest $10 million in the Marneuli district. We want to build hothouses on 6 hectares and sell our product on the local market, as well as export them.
The visit of the Israeli state delegation in Georgia began with signing the memorandum on cooperation in the field of agriculture. The head of Co-Investment Fund does not rule out that some agricultural projects will be realized in partnership with Israel. According to Georgi Pertaya, director of the investment agency, arrival of the Israeli businessmen in Georgia is very important. Besides investing money, they bring knowledge and skills and that are no less valuable for Georgian agriculture. The Israeli delegation met with the Minister of Infrastructure as well. The Best from India is the name of the exhibition, which was inaugurated in Expo Georgia. It was launched by the ambassador of India to Georgia and Armenia and representatives of Georgian Chamber of Trade and Industry. Over 50 Indian companies participate in the exhibition that will last for several days. Along with other merchandise, Indian national attires, accessories, and luxury goods are displayed at the exhibition. Constitutional Court of Justice made a ruling that temporary prohibition on acquiring agricultural land by the legal and physical persons of foreign countries was anti-constitutional. In September of 2013, International Transparency, Georgia appealed against the provisional moratorium. In January of 2014, the Constitutional Court examined the suit of International Transparency Georgia entitled Matthias Hutter versus Georgian Parliament and delivered its judgment several days ago. In July of 2013, the moratorium on granting permission to foreign citizens and foreign companies to own agricultural land came into force. According to the law, the right of the ownership to the foreigners was suspended till December 31, 2014. At the Ministry of Economy, they explained that the moratorium was a temporary measure and its validity would expire by the end of this year. Meanwhile, the lawmakers were elaborating a package of amendments to the law which would concede equal rights to foreigners and Georgians. Let's now go back to the elections. Presumably, the Court of Justice will find two companies which donated pre-election contributions to the Georgian Dream Alliance. The Service of Financial Monitoring of the Activity of Political Parties requests to punish the company Geospirtprom and the Dougladzes Wine Company. The reason of the discontent of the monitoring service proved to be the detection of the citizens of foreign countries, namely Russian citizens, among the founders of both donor companies. According to the audit service, they have violated the law on political union of citizens.
The political alliance was given a directive to return the said sum to the donors, while the reports were drawn up against the corporate bodies an administrative offense. The Court of Justice will examine the reports on administrative offense.
On May the 29th and May the 30th, the Georgian Dream Alliance received 20,000 lari each time from Geospirtprom and the Dougladzes Wine Company, respectively. The Georgian Dream had to return the donated sum within 5 workdays. The ruling coalition returned the sum in question earlier than the deadline. Why did they donate money to the ruling coalition? Were they not aware that they violated the law by their action? The donor companies left these questions without coherent answers. The monitoring service intends to file a case against both donor companies. As a result, instead of 20,000 lari received in each case, the Georgian Dream Alliance will have to pay the double fine of 40,000 lari to each of the donors. Under the sponsorship of Georgian Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, Protection and the Caucasian Network of Non-Governmental Environment Protection Organizations, they installed disposable air pollution measuring filters in Tbilisi. The filters will be installed in several other towns of Georgia as well, in Rustavi, Batumi, Kutaisi, Chiatura, Zestaponi, and Poti. After a certain period, the filters will be collected in a special container and sent to Great Britain for laboratory analysis. Thereby, quality of air in 7 towns of Georgia will be evaluated. The Georgian Minister of Internal Affairs and the Ambassador of the United States to Georgia inaugurated the new building of the Center for Joint Marine Operations of Coast Guard Department at the Supsa Station. The center is furnished with the maritime surveillance technologies and the state-of-the-art infrastructure. At the same time, Alexandre Chikaidze and the American ambassador presented the Department of Coast Guard with the equipment necessary for the ship repair workshop. The Byron Week is today coming to its finale in Georgia. The 40th International Byron Conference in Tbilisi is being hosted by Tbilisi State University and the Byron Society of Georgia. The Byron scholars from 20 different countries are participating in the conference. Here in Georgia, this great English poet is loved and venerated just as much as in his own motherland. The Georgian people have extensively drawn on the well-known Byronic ideals. The success of the conference has become a real talk of the town. Our correspondent, Kote Mosidze, has met the participants in the conference, and he probably has something interesting to tell us this morning.
Georgia is hosting 40th International Byron's Conference, which will last 6 days. Lord Byron's descendants here in Tbilisi participate in this high forum. Georgia has an outstanding scholar of Byron's works in life who has written books about the great Englishman. She has also founded Byron Association in Georgia and famous School of Byron in Tbilisi. Her name is Professor Ines Merabishvili. How much Byronic ideas do you think can influence the Georgian youth?
It has already influenced, and it has been influenced since long. 2 centuries ago it started, and all leading Georgian thinkers and men of letters were and still are under his spell. That's very important. And Georgian Byron, this name has been established in Georgia, and Galaction was renowned as Georgian Byron. That's important.
Georgia is enthusiastic for Lord Byron. That is the short answer. In order to hold a conference, you need one or more people who are really Byron enthusiasts. In this country, we have, in Georgia, I think a group of them, led by Professor Ines, who's been instrumental in getting the conference here, and other enthusiastic Byronists at the university. And I think there is something in the nature of Byron's poetry and his life that appeals to the people of Georgia. So there is enthusiasm for him here, and that is sufficient.
Well, I think Georgia has certainly taken to Byron with great enthusiasm, and of course Byron's message is for everybody, everywhere, and particularly for nations that are emerging from a previous state where there's a state of change. But the real credit, I think, for Georgia is that the rule of law and honesty and decency and upholding the citizen and looking after minority groups.
Thank you, Kote. I truly believe, and I also hope, that Lord Byron's famous call for action is indeed working in the life and culture of this nation. The high-heeled race was organized in the Riche Park. 11 girls took part in the event. The age of the participants was 18 to 25 years. According to the indispensable condition of the race, the participants had to wear at least 7-centimeter high-heeled shoes. Dancer Ani Mgeliashvili won the race. She was the first to cover the 50-meter long distance. The winner was awarded with a voucher for 2 in Antalya, Turkish resort place. The runner-up received the prize of 500 lari. The winner of the 3rd place was awarded with 300 lari. According to Kahi Khabeishvili, manager of the best model currently, the project is implemented in 12 European countries, and increasingly it is acquiring certain permanency. This high-heel race was the first of its kind in Georgia. This race is surely beyond any gender equality. Why? Because men can never do it. Well, that's as much as we have had today. You are watching the weekly business news in English on Channel 3 of the Georgian television. Thank you very much for being with us. I am Nugzar Rukhadze. I'll be back on the air again with the business news in English next Saturday morning at exactly 11 a.m. right here at TV3. Until then, have a lot of fun and a great week too.